What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and today I'm back to talk about Warhammer 40K. More specifically, today I'm diving into the hobby aspect of 40K because I've been looking at just the crazy amount of models and 40K themed things that I've bought throughout the years of playing 40K. So we first started playing Warhammer 40K when we walked into a mall and one of the guys at a Games Workshop kind of lured us into their store, and that's where it all began. We saw all the crazy amounts of boxes and plastic on the shelves. We saw the awesome looking miniatures. The Space Wolves were the ones that drew us in, and we decided to buy a box set. It was Gersh's birthday that day, so he ended up getting more of the box than I did and another one of our friends did. But just buying a box set, clipping the sprues, and just building a model without even knowing what this model is, what weapons we should put on them, like what's a good weapon, what's a bad weapon, what's even a legal amount of weapons to have. Like, that's fun, that's interesting. That is how we got into Warhammer 40K. I just built a crazy cool looking Space Wolf with 2 axes. So like I said, we didn't really know what we were doing, but that was our first big toe dip into the pond that is 40K. And from there, it stemmed into us creating our own version of Warhammer 40K mixed with like checkers. The reason why we did that is because we didn't know how to play 40K. Like, we saw how expensive the hobby was, we saw how thick the rule book was, and when we were building our Space Wolves, we heard some of the talk from like 2 players that were playing on one of the boards there. And they were talking about how the atmosphere affected their game, and that just blew our minds. We're like, whoa, this game has so many rules, we have to think about the atmosphere and the weather, what? So we decided to dumb it down quite a bit. We ended up getting huge pieces of cardboard, and we drew a checker pattern on there, and then we glued rocks, we blacked out some squares, and we basically played bootleg 40K / checkers. Like, if you got shot in the jetpack would explode and it'd push you forward a various amounts of squares. Each mini we had its own stat line. So think of like Kill Team, but like not Kill Team, to put it simply. Oh, those were the days. We were in middle school, so we didn't have money, we didn't have the time, the resources. We didn't really have an idea of what 40K was until much, much later. And that is when we decided to actually dive headfirst into the game. Gersh went with the Orcs, and I went with the Tau Empire. And from then, that's where our army started to build and grow. Back then, I built everything, I painted everything, I converted a ton of Tau battlesuits. I even got Forge Road battlesuits. Like, this army was amazing. But then, around the end of 5th edition, for some reason we took like an edition, almost 2 edition break. We got back into the end of 7th, pretty much right up to the beginning of 8th. And since we weren't playing 40K, I didn't think we'd ever pick this game up again. So unfortunately, I sold my Tau army, and it has stung me to this day because it was very interesting, very dynamic Tau army. I wish I even had pictures, but I don't. Because this was kind of before the whole explosion of like the internet and all this stuff. So yeah, I unfortunately don't have anything to say this was the army that I had back in the day. It sucks, but I did make $700 out of it, which back then I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of money. As you grow older and become an adult, 700 is a lot, but it can go away really quickly. So that's my tip to you guys. Never sell your armies unless you're absolutely 100% sure you won't have seller's regrets and you're not going to get back into the hobby again. But after that, that's when I started to rebuild. And at that point, that's when I knew I wanted to create something interesting, something different than just getting a Tau army saying, I'm going to play the Farside Enclaves and then build off of that with an established lore, established characters. No, I wanted my own legion. I wanted to recreate what I thought would be the Lost Legion, the 11th Legion of the Space Marines. And with that came a ton of reading. Because in order to make a legion that makes sense in the world of Warhammer 40K, you have to know the ins and the outs of the lore. You can't just go ahead and create a Primarch that is just so OP he doesn't fit in 40K, even though 40K, in my opinion, is a very OP-esque type of world, system, IP, I guess you can say. Because whenever you pit like Warhammer 40K universe against the Star Wars universe, it's like, well, 40K's got it in the bag. So it's a very interesting power scaling system where you have to like go through a bunch of like loops, checks, and balances to make sure, hey, these guys aren't overpowered. I want to play like a Legion of Space Marines that have 3-up feel no pain. They can move 8 inches regularly. Like, no, that's game breaking. That's going to take away the fun out of, playing Warhammer 40K. So when I first started, I decided to make this Legion based off of the Blood Angels. That was a bad idea, because the army that I created in the lore, they were powerful psychers. And the only way that I kind of embodied that in the tabletop was through the use of the Librarian Dreadnoughts. But as I began to develop more lore on my Legion, it became known that that's not the direction that I needed or I wanted to go. So throughout the many years of writing lore, throwing away bits of lore, adding more lore to it, I started putting out videos on YouTube, started to get your guys' advice, talking to other wargamers who have made their own custom Space Marine warbands, chapters, legions, and it is a very interesting and very unique community that really thrives off of imagination and just the lore of this game. There were so many awesome people that I got to know that just had awesome ideas in their head, and even better, like artists and painters and stuff like that, because I had pretty much the entire army of my 11th Legion, the Celestial Sons, has been commissioned by painters, and they've done a crazy amount of awesome work. The other part of my army has been bought off of eBay, usually pre-painted already, and that's just because I don't have time nowadays to build, paint, and I don't think I'm that great of a painter. Gersh1 has also helped me with a few models in this army here and there, and as I've evolved by making my own Space Marine chapter and whatnot, as the editions have progressed and we've seen new lore come out, we've seen Primaris Marines come out, it really gives you a perspective that this game is ever changing, and because of that, you also have to be open-minded when creating your own chapter, your own Legion for that matter, because with Legion it's a little bit different, because that's kind of already cemented in stone. We do have a little bit of lore on the Lost Primarchs as to who or what they were. The heresy happened. So there's things that you can't outright change in the lore to make fit in your own custom lore. So because of that, it's just been an awesome ride, and I just wanted to kind of showcase the models that I've bought throughout the years. And it's an ever-evolving thing, like I said, so just because I have some models here doesn't mean I still have them. Some models have gone through an evolution, so it's fun because as I'm creating my 11th Legion, we play current edition 40K, so it's like these models are still donning heresy or pre-heresy era armor. Some of the models are Custodes, and I still have yet to write that into the lore. But it's been an evolution, because as I was playing this army as Blood Angels, then it just became to Space Marines, like the custom ones that you can build in the book, and then that evolved into Grey Knights, and it's fun playing Grey Knights. And I think right now I'm at a position where the army that I have now is a mixture of Grey Knights and Custodes. And the thing as to why I play it that way is because Custodes have always looked amazing in my eyes. The Contemptor, Achilles, and the Galatus Dreadnoughts, the Heavy Telemon Dreadnoughts, they're beautiful, they're amazing, they're bulky. They're what I aspire all Dreadnoughts to be. So I started collecting those. and I always played them as other things. I've always pretty much proxied with this army, but now I think I've sat on a really good kind of foundation where I'm playing this as a soup of Grey Knights, Adeptus Custodes, and my Primarch will be played by Guilliman. And Guilliman does have some abilities, some auras that don't just affect Ultramarines, but Imperium, so that kind of does synergize a little bit. But if I do wish to play this army as it is in its entirety, I would have to go Unbound. Because in the lore, after the breaking off and the Edict of Obliteration and whatnot, they encounter Necron Tomb Worlds, and they start hunting for C'tans. And I actually do have 2 C'tans in this army, and then the army kind of splinters off, and some go Renegade and become Chaos. So it's been an evolution, and that's kind of my quick, half-assed synopsis as to what this army has become. But I want to know if you guys have made any groundbreaking, awesome custom lore for your armies, and how that progression has become. When did you start making your custom armies, and what has it become nowadays? But yeah, leave all those comments down below. I have a playlist for all of your user-submitted fan lore, so you guys can check that out. I've got a playlist on my Celestial Sons and their lore, so just go ahead and check it out. This is just a PSA video, I guess you can say, to kind of give you my growth as a wargamer when creating my custom chapter, custom legion. And I really want to see your guys' thoughts, opinions, and stories down in the comments below. So with that being said, guys, thank you for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the comments. This has been the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll see you then. Peace.